Alright guys, welcome back. Today we're going to look at Litecoin's technical structure. If you haven't watched the educational videos, I recommend doing that because that kind of explains the fundamental context, the macro context. And I think those two variables, fundamentals, macroeconomic environment we're in, and then the sentiment analysis, I think those are my top three most important key variables, and then overlaying technical analysis on top of it. Um, is kind of the fourth thing on the list for priority of importance for me. I know technical analysis dominates the crypto sector because most of these chains have very little, if any, end consumer demand, and it's all a popularity contest. But for me, it's important because I have to know exactly what I'm buying, why it will be demanded, and what the mass public thinks of it. Right? I only want to find things that are unpopular to the masses, that have strong fundamental growth because I'm trying to buy something at a discount and sell it when it's overpriced. But today's video is going to be on the technical structure. So let's just start with LTC USD. And I think for most people, including myself, you want to have a longer term perspective and then work your way down. So on the highest of time frames, maybe we'll pull up the 6-month chart first. Many people are familiar with these triangular type structures. Technical analysis around triangles developed because it's a period where the market's consolidating, right, within a range in a tighter range over time. So this is 8 years practically that Litecoin's been in this range. Um, it's a period of indecision between the market. What I think has gone on, and I've explained in previous videos, and we'll just overlay this briefly because I think the context actually is important here, because I think the technical analysis holds far more weight if you overlay what's actually happening. And the way I've understood this from the beginning is that um, what's happened with Litecoin is that speculative interest was extremely high here, and it just declined rapidly. So you had this giant decrease in speculating on the chain itself. Why is that? Well, tons of competition, new coins, big money promoting various other altcoins has led Litecoin to be kind of sidelined in terms of speculative interest. But on the demand side, the real demand side that drives growth long term, this is Litecoin transactions. Now, a network's worth not just total transactions. I don't think that's a good metric on its own. Really, it's the quantity times the quality, or quantity times weight of those transactions that are going to move price, right? It's total volume sent on the chain over time. And Litecoin's median transaction values haven't really moved. It's being monetized at the same level, but it's consistently increasing, like I've explained in previous videos, because it's the second Bitcoin chain to be monetized. And this process likely continues. What's unique about Litecoin isn't just that it's divergent here, right? As speculative interest is declined, and network adoption has grown, it's kind of maintained this steady price. But what's most unique about Litecoin is the path for growth isn't just linear up and to the right like it has been here, right? If there's a sudden surge in demand for permissionless money, for Bitcoin, not BTC, but Bitcoin in general, then Litecoin can go vertical, right? It can steal Bitcoin's mid-value transactions, which are worth a lot more than what most of these transactions currently happening on Litecoin are at. So I think that's important context, because if you believe, like I do, that demand for censorship resistant, inflation resistant money will increase over time as governments continue to, try to hide quantitative easing and expand QE, then if that's adopted, Litecoin's the most likely chain to benefit uh, from that growing demand because of the network effect lead. So taking that into context, with this um, long-term chart here, we'll pull up 3-month, and I'll get rid of these lines. But as you can see, just from price consolidating here, obviously volatility is going to head lower. So the 3-month volatility for Litecoin, even if you pull up the full entire price chart, is at all-time lows, while network adoption is at all-time highs. It doesn't take much because Litecoin's a pretty small uh, asset in the cryptocurrency market, right? It's like ranked 20th at $8-9 billion. It's really tiny compared to most, and compared to the amount of capital that's going to come into the space and that is already here. So whether that's a speculative catalyst, which I think is most likely, right? ETF approval, or some people rotating into Litecoin from other coins. It doesn't take much to get a high time frame breakout out of this range where volatility will expand to the upside and then lead to narrative change. And the narrative is so in the gutter, right, with search interest being at all-time lows over the last 10 years, that it can't really move any lower. Especially if price breaks out, it will only increase, and you can get this positive reflexivity or momentum-based price action that is so evident in so many other coins with almost zero fundamentals, like meme coins. So on the high time frame chart, this is extremely bullish if you put this into context. Even if you didn't have the fundamental backing, you could just pull up monthly charts. I like on balance volume and CMF because they represent, and this isn't going to do a good job because it's not an actual exchange. They represent sort of buying interest, and people use these to determine whether an asset's in accumulation or distribution. I think because long-term holders have continued to accumulate, you can check the on-chain data for that. Plus, on-balance volume suggests the same, right? If you see sideways price action, like we've had for 8 years, but growing on-balance volume, higher lows, higher highs, right? OBV just broke through its all-time high recently, but price has not. And same with CMF. You've had this constant increase and then holding of this high CMF value on the monthly time frame, that suggests there's accumulation happening. So that's supporting evidence of a breakout. If you compare this to other chains, they don't look like this. Right? I mean, Ethereum does not on the monthly time frame. No new high and on-balance volume, but price is reaching the all-time highs. I think really this was a rotational trade from Bitcoin to ETH with large pools of capital that can move price. We're doing this just based on past cycles, right? It became a self-fulfilling prophecy. On the pair charts too for Litecoin, on the higher time frames, you can see the same sort of thing happening, right? This is LTC BTC. You have this massive divergence between CMF and price. Price is going down. CMF's making higher lows for since May 2022, so 3 years, over 3 years. And the point here to me is that all these pair charts that look primed to break out, even the LTC Doge chart, which a lot of people don't pay attention to and they don't like these cross pair cryptocurrency analysis. The only reason I pay attention to this is because I've seen this price structure repeat so many times in BTC USD over the last few years. Like if you pull up the BLX, the long-term price history of BTC, you can see this same sort of higher high, higher low before massive expansion. I don't know where my price chart went, but it's the same price structure I was just showing where you have this wick down, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low before massive expansion. It's happened over and over again. It happened here in 2013. And so I think we're going to see something similar to that with LTC against a lot of these pairs. And another interesting characteristic I wanted to point out that I think is important. Now, these are fractal analysis, which typically don't, I would never trust this on its own. But given the fundamental structure and the things I've talked about before, sentiment analysis, fundamental analysis, and macro analysis, these hold a lot more weight to me. So let's pull up LTC or Doge USD from the 2020 cycle. Everyone is pretty familiar with how Doge outperformed almost everything. And yeah, it lacked fundamentals, but the price action is eerily similar to Litecoin today. So I just copied this here preemptively. What I want people to notice is that Dogecoin spent multiple years after underperformance in 2017 at the range lows, consolidating in this kind of declining volatility scenario where it spent basically since November of 2018 through end of 2020 in this range. and it underperformed so many cryptocurrencies early on in the cycle. Bitcoin, Litecoin, XRP, it underperformed all of them and then had this massive rally over a short amount of time. Um, this is how the crypto markets tend to work, right? The leading breakouts when everyone's paying attention at the end stage of a cycle is what attracts the most money, right? People chase the highest percent gainers. And because Litecoin hasn't moved yet, I think the odds of this happening are pretty good. So if I just paste what I just copied on Dogecoin over Litecoin, look at the fractal here. It does have a very similar structure to Litecoin. The Dogecoin actually did pull back here, but I think I copied I don't know, the monthly time frame. But the price structure is near identical. And so that's some evidence that we're going to get this breakout. Again, Litecoin consolidated even longer than Doge within this narrow range. And just like Doge pulled back one more time at the highs, you can't see it in this copy pasted price chart, but it did. The next move above these highs was like there's like an air pocket where there's not many sellers. So there's a lot of sellers here at the range highs, but once you break through that, potentially on a short squeeze, a lot of the long-term holders are holding for new all-time highs or higher prices, right? So if Litecoin is to break out here, when most eyeballs are on crypto and we're at the end stage, I think given the illiquid supply, the low market cap, the fundamental strength, the very low Google search readings, the potential is high because nobody owns it. If they all suddenly want to own it because of change in narrative, it will have to be rapidly repriced. It's illiquid and it's a tiny market cap on a relative basis. And then one more comparison that I wanted to make is to XRP. It was similar to Doge before it had its outperforming cycle in 2017. So it spent multiple years. Reddit comments and search interest were so bearish after this final correction down here. You can look back on Reddit from 2017 and they're like, I hope XRP doubles from here. And almost nobody predicted what happened. But the structure is very similar to Litecoin, as Litecoin spent 3 years, not just 2, in hovering around in this range. It's oddly similar. And I can just show that by copying and pasting it onto the Litecoin price chart. We'll delete the Doge price overlay. It's not going to be exactly the same. Litecoin pulled back one more time, but the broader market in 2017 moved a lot faster. But it is similar if you align these a little bit better than I have. Right, multiple years, consolidating up and down this range, and then once the high time frame breakout happens, everyone who's sold the last few years either buys back or gets it, and the few long-term holders that accumulated all these coins are not interested in selling until significantly higher prices. That's why you get these crazy moves. Momentum comes fast, especially in assets that have been ignored for so long. To summarize this video, what I think is important, again, fundamental sentiment analysis holds more weight, and the macro picture has to be bullish, but we're at all-time highs in stocks. Bitcoin dominance is still relatively high, and Bitcoin USD still looks like it has higher. So once rotation starts, if Litecoin gets a jump on everything else, maybe because of the ETF catalyst, it just takes far less money to move it in higher percentage terms than the competition. And I think the narrative can be extremely convincing that it's the second Bitcoin chain once price breaks all-time highs. Last couple things is it's been in a negative feedback loop because it hasn't moved. Right? Low volatility, people assume it's always going to underperform. But there are signs, right? Technical picture, on balance volume, CMF, both pointing towards accumulation. Speculative and fundamental demand catalysts coming with lithium, ETFs, and potential Bitcoin migration at a higher value range to potentially even surpassing BTC in total daily users. is there. Um, so I don't think there's ever been historical precedent for this because Litecoin could overturn the dominant Bitcoin maxi narrative if price moves high enough and fast enough. Uh, so yeah, it looks extremely bullish on the higher time frames. We'll have to see what happens on the lower time frames, but breakout can happen any day now, and so I wanted to put this out to review just the technical structure and what I'm looking at. So thanks for tuning in. Make sure to watch the next video.